Nikki Haley has thrown her hat in the ring for president. So we've got Donald for the Republican nomination. So you got Donald Trump and Nikki Haley now are in the arena together. But this starts to the conversation. What are the most important issues to Republican primary voters? Well, according to a recent poll commissioned by the American Principles Project, a vast majority want the GOP presidential hopefuls to take on the woke ideology so pervasive now in both education and healthcare. What will this mean as the primary race for the 2024 presidential nomination begins to heat up? Well, join me now to discuss this and more is Jon Schweppe, Director of Policy and Government Affairs for the American Principles Project. Jon, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so tell us your reaction to the poll that you commissioned. Any surprises there for you?
Well, this was a poll of GOP primary voters, and we wanted to see what really animates them, what gets them excited to support a candidate. And what we found was pretty encouraging, actually. The fight against the woke, these transgender issues, all of that, that's where the intensity really was. We also polled as contrast, some of the establishment GOP's pet issues. I would say, funding the war in Ukraine, comprehensive immigration reform, even Social Security and Medicare reform. And they did a lot worse. Ultimately, voters are looking for someone who's going to defend the family, who's going to fight the woke left, who's going to fight to stop these horrific sex change procedures that are being performed on kids. And I think, we're going to have to see, but I think a Republican candidate who emerges from this presidential primary is going to have to be strong on all those issues.
Yeah, what I saw here, Jon, that was interesting to me was the intensity on some of these issues. Like, for instance, 81% support a federal law prohibiting sex change medical procedures on minors, including puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries. 81%. I mean, that's quite significant. And now we're seeing, we've seen the last 2 years, these measures moving their way across the country. So it's clear that those state legislators are listening to the people. But I tell you, the one thing that really, really surprised me on this was there's been a lot of focus initially on men and women's sports. I mean, that was kind of the big thing. 69% support a federal law prohibiting biological males from competing in girls' sports at the K through 12 and collegiate levels. I mean, 69%, that's still a good number. But what was surprising was that it's even stronger when it comes to these sex change medical procedures. People understand what's going on and what really matters.
Yeah, that was a fascinating number to see the sex changes question eclipse the women's sports question. And, we've been asking variations of this for several years now. And early on, voters like 2017, 2018, voters didn't really know that sex changes for kids were happening. Obviously, that's different now. And so, when we're talking about protecting children, when you're talking about puberty blockers as young as 7, 8 years old, that's where voters are really animated. They see it as an issue of life and death because it is. And, women's sports is important and we want to protect these opportunities for girls. But I think it's a little bit lower stakes. We really, the sex changes thing, it's a horrific thing that's being perpetrated on these kids. And it really, really animates Republican voters. And what we found is that in our polling of the general electorate, it's actually really important to independents and even some Democrats too. It's a great issue for Republicans to lead on and hopefully, do the right thing as we try to stop this from happening across the country.
When you talk about the sexualizing of our children, is another strong number. 82% support a federal law requiring online pornography sites to verify the age of users to prevent minors from accessing that content. I mean, that's 82%. Again, another extremely strong number. I think what I read from this, scanning through it today, is that Americans have had enough of this over-sexualized culture that's just pushing this stuff on the American public.
Yeah, and that's an issue. Pornography hasn't really been something that's been talked about to the same degree as the transgender agenda. Obviously, it's connected. But we're seeing this massive support. And now, we had a state in Louisiana with a Democrat governor actually sign age verification for porn sites into law last year. And we're going to see several states pass legislation similar this year, which is really encouraging. But, I think the most important thing here for the politics of it, the Republican presidential candidates, they should be looking at these issues as a way to make waves and get ahead and build support within the Republican Party. I think both Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis understand that. But, you have somebody like Nikki Haley, who's, a good conservative, but she had her speech today and she didn't address social issues, not once. And I think that's a mistake politically that hopefully these folks will learn from and recognize that, conservatives we're engaged, and we're going to make sure that the Republican nominee is good on these issues.
So, John, based upon your survey here, which is pretty comprehensive, is there room for a moderate in the Republican primary? I mean, are they going to get any traction at all?
I think there's always the opportunity for, what I'd call the CNN, MSNBC lane, where he can run maybe 3-4%. But no, this is an issue, especially look at something like parental rights. Parental rights, you saw, I think it was 90 something percent support on the issue. You have to support that in a Republican primary, or you're not going to win. And I think that's where Trump gets that. He's talked, actually, he released a video a few weeks ago where he basically said we're going to combat all of this stuff. DeSantis has led on that in Florida, and so that's where we got to go. And I think Republican voters are ready for that.
So I think you're right. I think both Donald Trump and Governor DeSantis are kind of the pace setters on this. They're making their position known early. Donald Trump did during his administration. I mean, you have to recognize that he was the one that came in, overturned the Obama-era transgender policy in the military. He took that on. Of course, Ron DeSantis has been fighting for parents in Florida. So I don't think anybody that is on the other side of these issues has a chance in the Republican primary. I mean, I think you're right. They're going to have to show themselves just as strong, if not stronger, than Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, and the encouraging thing, especially for social conservatives, is that as Trump and DeSantis fight each other, they're going to continue to try to outflank each other on all of these issues. And so, even something we pulled on the big tech issue. Today, they're kind of outflanking each other with that, trying to do a digital bill of rights to make sure censorship doesn't happen online. So, I think this is going to be really good. I think folks should be excited about the primary, and let's make sure that we get a strong candidate that can finally take Joe Biden out of office and make sure we can save this country.
Yeah, the beneficiaries of this will be the American family, because as they fight this woke leftist agenda, the family benefits. John, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you sharing this information with us. Very insightful. Where can folks see more about this survey?
So we have a press release. You can check it out at AmericanPrinciplesProject.org, and it should have a link to the poll in the press release. And then we're on Twitter at AP Project.
All right, very good. We'll pass that along. John, thanks so much. Good to see you.